said I'm 75. Too hot, too cold? I just saw 75 on the thing. My classroom at school still doesn't have AC, so it's like 82 degrees by, oh no, it's been 4.5 weeks. Well, it started out, a swamp cooler with no water, so it's like blowing in heat, And we got a new principal and finally got him to turn the blower off. And so yeah, today it was only 79 in my room, so it's not so bad.
Oh, you have windows?
Yeah, they opened about this far, so it's no good. Yeah, no fans. Why would I have a fan? No. The hallway's cool though. So you just walk out there, cool down, ring it out, and go back in and do some work. And don't forget the kids with all the computers in there, it gets even hotter. So it's a good time.
What is their problem? What's your position?
I work for Albuquerque Public Schools. That's the problem. Yeah. I wait till I turn it on till we're live to say this kind of stuff. We'll give everybody just another second. We got the other class emptying out. Pam here tonight? Oh, I thought I heard her down there. Yeah. And here in just a sec, my kids will be running in, so. Always a joy, yeah. Depending what they're holding when they run in, right? Yeah, here we go. All right, after this, we'll get started. Okay, come here.
She's in the mood. She's in the mood. You should have seen her this morning.
I was telling him I saw a crawler on the news where 9 men died in a mining accident in your hometown.
Yeah. Yeah. This way. Bye, everybody.
You got any control over this at all, Jay? No?
Where am I putting this up there?
They're close to Jack.
Yeah. Exactly where it's Pam.
All right, so now that Pam's ready, we'll go ahead and get started. This week we're doing lesson 10. That means we got 3 more to go, which I'm sure I'm excited about. Maybe you guys aren't, but after I'm done, David's back doing Mark. You're back on Mark after Mark? Yeah, he's going to do John Wayne. He's going to be doing John Wayne. I don't know. He didn't.
When are you finishing this?
3 more Wednesdays, and then you're back on Mark, the book of Mark. Okay. Yeah. So, anyhow, tonight we're going to be doing it a little bit different. The lesson was laid out a little bit different than some other nights. It starts out with the lesson points we're covering tonight are 3 things to ask yourself before you say anything, 6 obstacles to good relationships, and 7 tips for conflict management. We're going to go through those real quick, and then we're going to watch our episode, part of the episode, and after that, then we'll have questions about the episode. But I thought it'd be good if we went over the lesson points first, just so we'd have a general understanding for when we watch how badly Barney messes up in this episode. Barney, I know, believe it or not, Barney. Yeah, so starting out, the 3 things to ask yourself before you say anything. And the first one is it true? Okay, and there's a verse that goes with it. But before you tell anybody anything, you need to ask yourself, is it true? If it's not true, you don't need to tell it, because then we're talking about gossip and rumors. If it is true, then you move on to step 2. Kind of like those flow charts I'm sure Jay has at work. Is the ice cream melted? Yes, take it out of the store. If it's not melted, what's the exact temperature of the refrigerating unit? All right, so if it's true, then we move on to step 2. Is it kind? So again, we're talking about when we're saying things to other people. If it's not kind, we should just move on and not say it, right? If it is kind, let's continue and say it. Now, sometimes there are things that are true and they're unkind, but we still have to share them. Yes, sir.
Who's going to define kind?
Kind? I guess it's up to you to define kind.
Because if you have something that needs to be said, and you're speaking the truth in love,
Right.
truth hurts.
The truth hurts sometimes. That's definitely true. But you're still speaking in love, love making it kind, right?
Yeah, but just the fact that you're speaking the truth.
Right. Some, and you know, it's more about you than them here when we're talking about these three things to ask yourself. So, is it kind? If it is, move on. If it's not, then you need to say it in as kind a way as possible, right? Or with love. Or if you got something horribly rude to say, at least be loving while you say it. There was many times when I worked at the homeless shelter, one of my favorite things to do is when everybody was complaining about how bad somebody stinked, and you get to be the one that walks up to them and say, all right, grown man, you need to go take a shower now. You know, that was something that happened at least once a week, but it wasn't necessarily kind, but it was definitely being kind to the other people that had to sleep within a 10-foot radius of them. The third thing to ask, is it necessary? Sometimes some things are necessary, like you're talking about, there's something you need to share. But if it's not necessarily, do you necessarily need to say it? Maybe not. So those are the three things to ask yourself before you say anything. Then we get into the 6 obstacles to good relationships. So these are 6 things that keep you from having a good relationship, and we're going to talk about these a little more. One of the first obstacles, and something Barney's going to demonstrate tonight, is having a quick temper. And if you're what is it Jim likes to say? He's a David fan or a David man. He always says he's a David man, right? So Jim, we got a lot of Proverbs for you here. So the verse that goes along with that is Proverbs 14:7. A quick-tempered man does foolish things, and a crafty man is hated. So any of y'all necessarily have a quick temper? Anybody ever have a problem with getting a little too angry too quick and have some relationships that have, or know somebody that has a quick temper? I'm glad my wife has left. I'm not going to share anything. But a quick temper never helps you out when you're trying to have a good relationship with somebody. I'd say not a whole lot of things can mess up a good relationship quicker than losing your temper. Number 2, a sharp tongue. Proverbs 21:23. He who guards his mouth and his tongue keeps himself from calamity. David, you wouldn't ever have a sharp tongue, would you? It sounded like earlier when we were talking about being kind.
No, I'm just opinionated.
Oh, all right.
That's really different.
Right, that's really different. Yeah, yeah.
Because I can say things in nice, loving ways to give you my opinion. That's true.
Okay, so a sharp tongue. Number 3 would be a deaf ear. And normally, sometimes in some instances, turning a deaf ear can be a good thing, right? But it says Proverbs 1:5, let the wise listen and add to their learning. So there's when you're dealing with good relationships, not paying attention or not listening to what someone says isn't going to help you have a good relationship. Yes, sir.
I really think with that one, that may be more times than not the biggest problem that comes up is not listening or not listening properly. A man wrote, I can't remember his name, I wrote a book back in the 70s, I believe it was, called The Awesome Power of the Listening Ear. And it's true, you know, when you have a difference going on, somebody, you know, did I hear you correctly? Is this what you're saying? But usually we jump on what we think we heard, you know, and what we just know they said this and they were attacking me, you know, we jump back rather than stop and say, is this what you meant? You know, the listening part. And my experience in counseling, men are really horrible about this.
All right, I didn't catch a word of that, but does anybody else? I've often said some people don't listen, they just wait to talk.
Yeah, bingo.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do that. Now, well, Nancy, you weren't calling yourself out, were you? I think maybe it was David I was talking to recently. There's some people, when you're having a conversation with them, you say something and they cling on to that in their mind and they know what they're going to respond and they don't listen to anything you say after that. They just wait, like I said, they're just waiting to talk, waiting to say the thing that they thought about, and they tone you out from there on. Number 4, obstacle to a good relationship, having a thin skin, which is the opposite of being thick-skinned. Proverbs 12:16 says, "A fool shows his annoyance at once, but a prudent man overlooks an insult." It can be hard to be thick-skinned sometimes, right? Being thin-skinned. And, I'm not saying, again, I feel like we say guys are bad at this a lot. But a lot of us guys will tease each other, and if you're not getting teased, that means nobody likes you, right? But if you're not getting played with or whatever. Oh, you're still holding a grudge over Saturday, Robert?
I think that's just an excuse. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we gave Robert a little razzing on Saturday. If Jay had been there, we would have given him one too, but they were on their magical trip.
But he's a loving brother like myself.
Right, yeah. He would have taken it well-deserved. That's what I meant to say, well-deserved trip. So it's important to have a thick skin in relationships. There's some people, if you guys ever known somebody, you make them mad one time on accident, and that's it. You're never going to be friends the rest of your life. They're going to be upset about that one little thing.
Especially if they know you're going to do that. There's some people who just enjoy pulling your chains to watch you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people like to do that. Once they know you're thin-skinned, some people like to play with you a little bit on that. Number 5, a hardened heart. And this one comes from Matthew 5:23 through 25. "Therefore, if you're offered a gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your fit there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift." So, and kind of goes back to what we were talking about with, wow, now I got pressure. Justin's here. I didn't know. Oh, I'm all nervous. Kind of going back to the thin-skinned, I think a lot of people that are thin-skinned, the hardened heart kind of goes with that. Like I was talking about, you upset them once and they're never going to give you another shot at being friendly with you, and they just lock in, get that hard heart, and nothing you say or do is going to change that.
That's that old idea of, I'll forgive you, but I won't forget.
Yeah, definitely. Every husband in here is giving me a quick glance and saying we're not going to talk about that anymore. And number 6, the last of the obstacles to a good relationship is a closed mind. And that comes from Proverbs 16:20. "Whoever gives heed to instruction prospers." So when you're not listening to instruction, you're not going to prosper. You're not going to learn anything if you're not willing to listen to other people. But a closed mind, everybody knows somebody that's closed-minded. They don't want to listen to a word you say. Nothing you say is going to change anything they think or know or care to discuss with you.
That doesn't carry with it the idea of not wanting to stop and ask for directions, does it?
We don't need directions anymore. We have GPS on our phone, so that took care of all those arguments right
I
there.
just don't like having two women tell me what to do.
Can't ask for directions?
No, you got the lady's voice in the GPS.
That's why I changed my GPS to a man a long time ago, so we don't have any of those arguments. Oksana was like, "Who's that lady you were talking to?" I said, "Nope, I changed it to a man with a Scottish accent, so now you can't complain."
Speaks a Japanese sign.
I don't know where we're going anymore, but it's definitely not a lady's voice. So closed-minded, that's your 6 obstacles to a good relationship. And each one of these you can see in the episode that we're going to watch here in a minute. And it's Barney that's demonstrating all of these things. Barney, we know, can be a little thin-skinned, what do they say, emotional, can get a little emotional kind of easy. And in this episode, he gets a hard heart and closed-minded and locks down and basically just doesn't want to have a discussion about anything. Then our next section is 7 tips for conflict management. The first one is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think that one works pretty well in most cases. Number 2 is when you're angry, count to 4 before you say anything. The lesson that was online was count to 10, but I like, if anybody's ever seen a show called Daniel Tiger, it kind of derived from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but on that show, my girls learned, when you get so mad that you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4, and then they count to 4. 1, 2, and then they're supposed to count. Thank you. Jay didn't sing when he did class, did he? I guarantee. Yeah, everybody was telling me they want Jay to do it next week, last week. Didn't have the voice, yeah. So when you're angry, take some time before you say anything. My grandpa used to say the best way to be the smartest man in the room is just not to say anything. Everybody else will mess it up eventually. Yes, Robert, what would you like to say?
Well, the other saying that
David.
comes up is it's better to
Cross
keep
it.
your mouth shut and let people think you're a fool than to open it up and remove all doubt.
Remove all doubt, yeah. That's a good one. Number 3, don't make mountains out of molehills. I think we probably all met somebody that one little thing gets blown way out of proportion. And again, that's what you're going to see here in a second on the episode. 2 wrongs don't make a right. I feel like I'm just naming stuff that Vicky tells to David on a daily basis here. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Go.
You on thick skin.
Right. All right, what, 3 lefts make a right? No, that's not. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 lefts make a right. Number 5, forgive and forget. And somebody was just talking, is you, David, saying something about forgive but not forget? Yeah, so remember to forgive and forget. And number 6, I like this one. Write your hurts in sand and carve your blessings in stone.
Amen.
Meaning, write the things that hurt you in something that can be easily wiped clean, and the things that are good, carve it in stone so you can remember it.
But you can't write it in sand with the other person's blood.
Right, yes. Whoa. All right. And number 7, the last tip for conflict management, and I really like this one. Sounds like something somebody back home would say. Hold your head up, but be careful to keep your nose at a friendly level. So keep your head up, but don't get all snooty about it, holding your nose up at people. So those are the 7 steps for conflict management. So folks at home, we're now going to get into the episode. And folks at home, just so you know, we're going to watch about an extra, I don't know who's at home. We're going to watch about an extra 2 minutes here in the studio for those of you at home. So just know that we'll be watching a little bit extra. So leading into the clip, and I'll go over what happens after the clip. The clip's from the beginning of the episode. At the very beginning of the episode, you got Andy and Barney sitting in the courthouse there, and they're going through old paperwork, and he finds when the receipt where he originally gave Barney his first firearm, and it was 10 years ago, so they're talking about this being the 10-year anniversary that Barney started being Andy's deputy. And Andy starts telling Barney how great a job he's doing, how he's done a fantastic job, everybody loves him. He's really proud of him and really appreciates all his hard work. And then Barney starts getting a little teary-eyed at how nice everything Andy's saying. So Opie comes in, and Barney's all embarrassed about crying. So he kind of skirts out real quick from the courthouse and goes outside and gets in the patrol car. And that's where we pick up on the episode. So now I got to go back into Studio 5 and start the clip. So I'll be right back. We'll be back.
Did you make some popcorn?
feel like I missed some. I think I did. Yeah. Don't worry, I got it today. Don't worry. No. Yeah. Okay. Still seems a little dark.
You got the light a little more.
All right. So after that, the rest of the episode, just to sort of sum it up for you, Barney hangs out in the jail cell. Later, Otis comes in. Right, Otis, town drunk, right? I'm getting that right, yeah. Yeah. Otis comes in, makes fun of Barney for a little bit for being in the jail cell, and then somebody calls. And they have a big argument. It's pretty funny, but then somebody Opie needs to get his tire aired up. He goes over to the garage, and Gomer. Sorry. Gomer, I'm tired. Gomer finds out from Opie that Barney's quit, and Gomer tries to make it all better by calling in a robbery at the gas station, a holdup at the gas station. Barney refuses to go answer the phone. Otis goes and answers it, and tells Barney that there's been a robbery, and he goes and gets the sheriff. Andy goes out there to see what's going on. Barney's not with him. Gomer's like, "Why is Barney not with you?" Then Barney comes running up to save the day, and he finds out that Gomer's just filed another false report, and he writes him out a ticket. I forget, 837 or something. I don't know if any Andy aficionados want to know the number of the ticket. And then as they drive off, Gomer starts yelling, "Citizens arrest" again, because Barney does an illegal U-turn. They get back to the courthouse, and Barney says he's sorry. He apologizes for making a fool of himself, and says, "What are you going to do with that resignation letter?" And Andy says, "Well, I'm just going to file it away with all the other ones," and starts reading off all the other times he's resigned and letters he's written. So that gets us into the discussion for tonight. It's just 4 questions, so we'll see how long it takes us. But question number 1 is a 3-parter, as we'd say. Did Barney take his job seriously? All the time? And he was very proud of his 10 years of service. Andy lifting him up at the beginning did not help with the situation, because Barney comes out there and he's all proud of himself, and he talks about his 10 years of service and not wanting to let anybody down. But he's very serious pretty much at all times about his job. I'd say Barney's a little overly serious, if anything, right? Takes stuff a little too far sometimes. Did Gomer see the seriousness in either crime that he committed? Again, the second crime being the one where he calls in the threat, and then they show up. But did Gomer see any seriousness in the U-turn crime? Did he see anything wrong with it? No. But it is still, why are we not supposed to make a U-turn in that situation? Because you could end up hitting somebody, or somebody could end up hitting you, right? But it is seriousness in a lot of ways. Was Gomer right or wrong with the whole citizens arrest thing? What did you guys think of that? Was he right or wrong? I would say the second time he calls in with the threat of the holdup, he's definitely wrong. But he's doing it for the right reasons. He's trying to get them back together. But what do you guys think of the citizens arrest and that whole thing that takes place in the clip we watched? Was Gomer wrong, or was he right?
I think he was right in that it wasn't an emergency where Barney, had to make that U-turn. So technically, I would say he was right in that. I mean, it was suggested to him. By the way, it was suggested to him by Barney himself.
Right.
He probably wouldn't have come up with the idea had Barney not suggested it to him.
Oh, he definitely would have come up with the idea, yes.
Both of them ended up trying to make their situation a double standard, because Gomer didn't see the wrong in his, but then when he decided to go ahead and pin it on Barney for what Barney did, they both could have said, "You know what, we were both wrong in this thing. Neither one of us should have done what we did." But pride got in the way, and
Anybody else? Anybody think he was wrong? Or right? Or either one?
Both wrong.
Both wrong.
And I think Gomer enjoyed being able to get back at Barney, you know? So,
Do we ever enjoy getting back at people that we feel do us the wrong?
That question is not on the paper, I'm guessing.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. No.
But there was a story that Charles Swindoll told a long time ago about a missionary who went out.
talking, I'm gonna get this light
He went out on one of the Indian reservations, and he was teaching them about Jesus, and he was teaching them from Romans 12, when Paul says, "Never get even, leave room for the wrath of God." So when you do that, you heap burning coals on their head. And this one fellow smiled, and the missionary asked him, "So why are you smiling?" He said, "I like to watch their heads smoke." Sometimes that's the way we are. It's just, I hope it comes back on your head, but good. I'll let God get you, and I hope He gets you good.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then at the end, again, I could have showed you the clip, I guess, real quick, but the folks at home and all. But at the end, like I was saying, Gomer calls the station and says there's been a holdup. He wants Andy and Barney both to come out together. He's upset they don't come together, but then Barney runs up, and eventually, when Barney finds out what he's done, and Barney knew, because it got him out of the jail cell, it got him back out there with Andy, which is what he knew he wanted to do, right? Barney gets a little hard-headed, but he gives that ticket to Gomer, and then they basically go through the same thing again, like they didn't learn anything the first time. He writes him the ticket, and Barney drives around, does another U-turn. Gomer's running after him again, citizens arrest. So this is one episode where I don't think they reach a moral conclusion. I think it's still going to be a continuing thing. Like we were talking about, they're going to enjoy razzing each other over probably for quite some time. Yeah. So what'd you guys think of Barney's impression of Gomer when he does his citizen's arrest, mocking him and everything? I thought that was a pretty good impression. But moving on to question number 2. Why was Barney so angry when Gomer made the citizen's arrest? Because he gets pretty angry pretty quick.
He was angry because of his pride. He was angry because he was shown up for the exact same thing that he had suggested earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was angry with himself, if you will.
He got caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just a calamity of further era when you're angry like that and you don't back off. And you're just too prideful to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
I think a lot of it is he was so boisterous. I mean, he was out there and he started bringing attention to the situation. All the people, started gathering around when you've got somebody like a loudmouth.
Whoa.
And so they heard what he said. So everybody's like, okay, well, you made a U-turn, so Gomer can give you a ticket. So
Right.
they were all in it with.
Yeah, I agree. And in the clip, you guys see that Gomer's not justified. He tries to pull off that he was in an emergency situation, right? You guys remember that part? So Gomer actually lied as well, which Barney doesn't necessarily do, I don't think. He says he's in an emergency vehicle, but he admits he wasn't going to an emergency situation. Best I remember, yes, sir.
We're good about seeing the wrong in others, but not in ourselves when we do it. I remember Richard Rogers telling a story about sin, and he said he would go on meetings and things, and he would ask the people to, list their top 10 know, what they would do. And they would hand it back to him on a piece of paper, and he'd have there invariably, you know, murder, stealing, drugs, adultery, you know, but that. And he'd start naming them. And this one lady was sitting up front, and he said, murder, you know, that's right. You know, adultery, and got on down there, and he said, what about gossip? And she said, that's what she was doing. And we kind of, his point was, we draw the line at, you know, what everybody else is doing. What we're doing, we find a way to try to justify it.
And I think it was last week, I forget what we were talking about, Pam, but we hit on something where you talked about the log in our own eye that we can't see forward.
Yeah.
It's definite, oh, I forgot to turn that off. I was gonna turn it off in the end though. I hadn't totally forgot, like I did the chair on Saturday.
Throw a book at it.
What?
Throw a book at it.
That would probably be frowned upon. Question number 3. Andy told Barney to write a ticket and they would talk about it inside. Why didn't Barney want to talk? And who was he really mad at this point?
He was mad at the sheriff for not supporting him. So,
I think he was also mad at himself.
Yeah.
He was upset with himself that he had made that tragic mistake of the U-turn.
Yeah, but he was definitely also mad that Andy didn't back him up, especially after all the stuff he had talked about.
yeah, I'm your number one guy, and now all of a sudden you're not supporting me here in this thing?
Right? You're just telling me how great I was before I went outside, and now you're not supporting me at all. And in front of everyone else, too.
Yeah.
It hurt his
The
ego.
whole thing.
And he felt like he'd been betrayed by his best friend, right? Which he hit on at the end there. So we're saying he was mad at Andy, he was mad at himself. Was he really mad at Gomer or not? I'd say he was mad.
Yeah, I was mad at him.
Yeah. What about the town people, the people in town there
Oh,
too?
yeah, I was mad at them too, because they were, first of all, they were on his side, and then when they changed sides, when Gomer came up with with the idea that came from Barney, you know, so.
And he had just been talking how he'd done 10 years of service to the community. He'd be letting down the community if he didn't give a ticket to Gomer. And now,
I like to let people know we're human, and it's embarrassing when we're humiliated in front of everybody. You know, just there's so many things that work there.
have any of y'all ever really humiliated yourself good and proper in front of anybody? It's probably one of the worst feelings in the world, I would say. And I mean, politicians are really good at it. They're really good at getting out of it. But for us common people, it can be, it's a very humiliating and humbling experience to get out of. And Barney here gets out of it easier than any of us would. I mean, we'd have to go probably, I mean, what would you do if you were humiliated in this situation? If you look this bad, Robert, what would be step number 1 to make up for this whole issue here that you've done?
Well, I mean, you really have to reconcile and understand and know that you were wrong and say I apologize.
Which he does at the end to Andy. You guys didn't see that, but he does eventually come around to say that. Would you go farther than that? Would you go talk to Gomer? Would you go talk to the people that are present or not?
I would probably go talk to Gomer.
Okay.
You know, probably one of the better things to have done as well was probably to talk to the townspeople and say I was wrong in doing this, and this is why. And you know, I still want to try to be the best person I can be to be your deputy, to be the deputy of this town of Mayfair.
There's so much involved there because, yeah, you know, people are forgiving. You know, you apologize to people, but then you stop thinking, yeah, and there's always some out there who just love to see you grovel. You know, they want to see you down and dirty and, you know, make it worse for you. But you can't do anything about them. All you can do is handle what you are and what you've done and go from there. You know, they either forgive you or they don't. And you know, and that's one of the things that's kind of interesting about the way television portrays things. And this is one of my little pet peeve things is, no, well, God forgives me. So, I can go on from there. It doesn't matter. If you're not gonna forgive me, that's fine. If God's forgiven me, I'm forgiven. And that never comes out, and those are entertaining, and that's, but that comes to be our way of doing things too. We accept that way of life.
Definitely. And I would say the situation I get in something the most in this type of situation is with my kids when they call me on something I do and I get onto them. Don't eat that cookie or that pie or that ice cream all at once right before bed. I just did it 10 minutes ago and now I'm telling them not to do it or something. My kids call me out more than anybody else in situations where I make a fool out of myself like Barney does here. But, and then of course I get mad at them and tell them to go to bed instead of taking care of my own business,
Until they turn 16 and they bring something to you that's a lot more serious than just cookies or ice cream.
Right.
And you gotta own it.
Yeah.
And that's humbling.
Is there anything you want to talk about from experience there, David?
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the stars.
All right, moving on to question 4. Do you ever allow your temper to get you into trouble that could have been avoided? Anybody ever get... Jay, I know you don't like to talk from your own experience. You'd embarrass yourself. You ever had an employee that's temper got them in trouble? In a situation where it could have been avoided? Yeah?
I'm probably better at listening now than I was probably when I was younger. Guess my older age, I do listen, but I guess it's easy to do because I have the last say.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I think it comes from wisdom. Yeah, I mean, you begin to really try to listen to what's going on after a while. When you're young, you think you know so much, and then you realize as you're getting older, you find out all the things that you don't know as you continue to learn. Then you're more willing to listen to somebody before you respond. And there was a lot of reaction going on. And you learn to respond rather than react. React is an instinctive, momentous, spur of the moment boom. But if you think before you say something, just hold your mouth and try to process all the things that have been said and going on, then you'll be better off for it.
Which brings us back to our 7 tips for conflict management. Feel free to sing that song I taught you. Get so mad that you want to roar. Take a deep breath, count to 4. You guys ever know, growing up in school, we got them in school all the time now, but there was that one hot-headed person that would just always get mad just like that. And you got to learn to deal with that person. On the Andy Griffith Show, that's definitely Barney. And like I was talking about at the end of the episode, Andy goes through all his different resignation letters, He learns to not take things quite as serious when Barney gets upset, And we have some friends that take longer to learn that stuff about temper and wait, they're in their 80s or 90s before they start calming down a little bit. And you kind of got to learn how to deal with those people if they're not going to learn how to deal with themselves. We're always going to have to deal with hot-headed people. Whether you go to, Walmart and see Al there and he's getting all mad at you at the self-checkout line or something. We're missing Al tonight. But you're always going to have to learn. You can master your own temper, but no, everyone else isn't. So you're going to have to learn to deal with those people too in your life. The second part of the question on number 4, how can you handle similar situations and conflict with more diplomacy in the future? So, like on the episode, how could Barney have dealt with the situation better? Or how could Gomer have dealt with the situation better?
Own it up front, admit it, deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think instead of escalating your voice and making it louder and louder and louder, you do the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that will calm a situation.
Right. And both these guys start calling each other names too, didn't they? That never helps anything. And Barney was mocking Gomer. dealing with those situations. You don't want to mock anybody. So let's,
Usually the easy thing to do is, if the person has a point that's valid and it's at you and you don't like it, usually what you'll find people doing is they'll start attacking and they'll attack the character rather than deal with the issue. If you just deal with the issue and stay on track with that, you can solve things a whole lot quicker, a whole lot easier.
okay, and if you got somebody that's losing their temper, David, how do you get them back to the issue?
Well, you bring them back, and you bring your voice down, you don't let your voice raise it. Look, is this what you're angry about? What's the real point here? You know, Barney just said, Gomer, really, you know what, we both did wrong. And we both need to own this. We shouldn't have done that. In front of all these good people here, apologize to them for having done that. And, we both take our part of what we did wrong. And there's never an innocent party and a guilty party. Usually, anytime you have something where there are two people involved, two personalities involved, both people are probably guilty on some level. Nobody's completely innocent, really.
Right, and I would say Andy tried to come in as a mediator here, and feel free to,
And see, even the way he approached it and tried to deal with it, he was, by most standards, we would say that was right, and what he should have said, Barney, calm down a second. Gomer, hush. Now here's what I'm hearing you fellas saying. Is this what's going on? He could have handled it better too.
right. And, I was gonna say, with bringing him in as a mediator, if the two parties that are involved aren't willing to talk or to listen, the mediator's not gonna be able to do any good.
Especially when the mediator's getting frustrated, upset.
Right, right. But, and, everything happening out there reflected on him too, But I think, at school, if two kids are fighting, the first thing you want to do is remove them from everyone else that's watching. Because once that audience is involved, they got to play a character, So you got to remove them, which is what he's trying to do. Andy's trying to get them removed from the crowd and get them to somewhere where they can talk. But he's not having a whole lot of luck with it. Anybody else? Andy? Could Andy have done anything different? I don't know if he could have or not.
I was gonna say back to just when you have somebody that's hot-headed and angry about something, sometimes what helps is if you can acknowledge at least some part of what they're saying that's correct, and say, I agree that you're right about this, and just give them a sense that you hear what they're saying, that you understand it, and kind of validate part of why they're angry, if that applies. And that sometimes kind of settles them down. Whenever I get angry parent calls, about different things, and even though what they're angry about is not justified, I can let them know, I do understand where you're coming from. I would feel this way about such and such, but let me explain why this works like this.
Yeah.
One of the gold mine helpers in society is somebody who really knows how to do conflict management. If you watch the way churches split and what they split over, and 99% of the time it's dumb. You watch relationships that splinter and fall apart, and 99% of the time it's dumb. It can be corrected. There's a way to handle it. And one of the things we've not done in the church over the years that I've seen, we really don't know how to do conflict management on any level very well. And we wonder why we lose people.
I'd agree with that one. Final thoughts. When word gets out that your deputy and ex-best friend has been jailed for a minor offense, you'll be the fool, Barney said. Who was really the fool in this episode? Barney. Even saying that Andy's his ex-best, that's middle school stuff right there if I ever heard it, right? Ex-best friend. Andy would do anything for Barney, Barney would do anything for Andy, but when we get mad sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, we say a few things we don't mean, sometimes in anger, right? And we end up, like Andy said a while back, end up eating crow because of it. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, one of the things you said earlier too is, you have on here thin skin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Barney's a thin skin person. He's the kind of person that we used to say carries a chip on his shoulder. You know, it doesn't take much to set him off.
No.
And I even think sometimes he has a hormonal problem, because he really can go off.
Right.
But, it's a hard thing to do, to try to control that person down. But as Pam was saying, you have to, talk to them and in a calm voice yourself and ask them, well, what's going on and,
Mm-hmm.
why are you feeling this?
And sometimes they need a couple days in the prison cell, a jail cell, just to calm down, right?
But Pam brings up a good point about validating. If both of them would have been validated by the peacemaker, if you will, if both of them would have been validated to a point, this is what happened, this is why this happened, now just stop it.
And you're both right, you're both wrong.
You're both right and you're both wrong, and here's the thing, why don't we just wipe the whole slate clean? And we'll start all over again. We'll throw both tickets out, both accusations are now gonna be null and void. But validate the right that was with, Barney and the right that was with, Thorne.
Right. Which I think that was Andy's plan. He just wanted to get him inside to talk about it.
And he couldn't get them inside,
Couldn't
that's
get-
what do you mean, you know?
And I don't think you could have done that in front of all the townspeople saying, we'll just cancel these tickets
Right.
out.
No.
Because they both had done wrong, they both deserved the ticket.
Right.
But you could take it somewhere private,
Right.
and like you had said to do with Barney, could have done the same thing with government. Fellas, let's go inside and we'll take care of this in private.
Yeah.
Whenever you're gonna do on that one, just keep it between, because if you do that in front of everybody else, I can go ahead and break a law, it's gonna get forgiven if I raise a big stink.
Right. And I think a lot of those arguments we're talking about in the church, if they were done in, those situations were handled in private, a lot less people would see what's going on, and it would solve a whole lot of problems too. All right. That's it for the lesson. What do we have in the way of announcements, prayer requests? What's going on? What's going on? We got a birthday party for Elias on Sunday morning after services. I know about that. He's 4. He likes ponies, and I think Raymond said Jeep Wranglers 2020 or newer. 4-door, I think is what he said. Anything else going on?
He loves books.
He loves books? As far as I know, I've heard Haskell's doing good.
How about Roy?
But he-
Did he finally get into a facility?
I don't know, he may have left his, that's an announcement. Danny and them are back in town as of sometime tonight, and they are coming in with a truck full of stuff that they need help.
Smaller truck though.
Smaller truck that they need help unloading tomorrow, I know, at 9:30. Some of us have to work, right, Jay? But they're needing help unloading that truck, I know, tomorrow. There was an email about the exact time. You say 9:30? Are we in agreement? Is that what it said? I think it said 9:30. Yeah, so they're back in town as of tonight.
As far as Roy, we're not talking to him Tuesday. Either Monday or Tuesday. And anyway, he was waiting for, to get the order to go to rehab.
Okay.
They are going to send him to rehab.
Okay, and is he still in the hospital waiting to go to rehab, or? Well, they started the meal train though, so I kind of assumed it went. Okay, they re-canceled it? Well, they restarted another one.
There's another one?
Yeah.
Really?
As far as I know, there is a meal train for the Grace family. It was on and then off and then back on again.
When is it starting this time?
It started yesterday. It started like Tuesday, Sunday or Monday. Well, because I know there was a meal Monday, and there wasn't one today or yesterday or today. But then there's
has a horrible food allergy to broccoli, if you didn't see, so no broccoli. That's what it said, yeah. I think somebody just doesn't want broccoli. I've never heard a doctor say you'd be allergic to broccoli. I'm not,
But just 'cause you never heard.
you never know. I'm not calling him out on that or anything. But it was a smart move, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But he loves to get phone calls.
Right, and it did say if you do the meal train just enough for one meal, because they didn't want a bunch of extra to clog up the fridge. Anybody got any other announcements? Let's see, next Sunday night is singing. We have the singing next Sunday night, so there won't be any small groups next Sunday night. Singing here at the church building. And can't think of anything else. No, I'd feel bad about calling on David to lead prayer. He's led the last 2 prayers anywhere I've been. So, Jay, if you could lead us in prayer and dismiss us, I'd appreciate it.